In just 24 seconds, one of Hollywood's biggest legends went from sitting comfortably on a late-night set to storming off in front of millions of viewers after the host pushed her too far. What started as casual banter turned into a fiery meltdown that exposed just how far some people will go to get a reaction. And when Cher finally had enough, she didn't hold back. Before we get into this explosive confrontation, make sure you subscribe to this channel for daily videos exposing Hollywood's darkest scandals. Hit that notification bell because you won't want to miss what we uncover next. Last night on Greg Gutfeld's show, something happened that nobody saw coming. Cher, the iconic singer and actress, appeared as a guest, and what should have been an entertaining conversation quickly spiraled into one of the most uncomfortable moments in late-night television history. The tension was there from the very beginning, simmering just beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to explode. When Cher walked onto the set, the studio audience erupted in applause. She was wearing a black leather jacket with her signature long dark hair flowing past her shoulders, looking every bit the superstar she's always been. Gutfeld stood up from behind his desk, giving her a wave and that smirk he's known for. The kind of smirk that says he's about to say something he thinks is clever. "Welcome, welcome," Gutfeld said as Cher took her seat on the couch next to his desk. "Thanks for coming on the show. I know this isn't your usual crowd." Cher smiled, but it was tight. "Well, I like to mix things up sometimes," she said. "Besides, I've been doing this long enough to handle just about anything." The audience laughed, and Gutfeld nodded. "Oh, I'm sure you have. I mean, you've been in the business for what, 100 years now?" There was a pause. The audience gave an awkward chuckle. Cher's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Wow, okay. Starting strong, I see." Gutfeld leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. "I'm just saying, you've had an incredible career. You've seen it all, done it all. The hair, the outfits, the music, the movies. You're like the Swiss Army knife of entertainment." "Thanks, I think," Cher replied, shifting in her seat. She was trying to keep things light, but you could see the first cracks forming. The audience could feel it too. That uncomfortable energy when you're watching someone getting picked on but it's disguised as a joke. Gutfeld continued, flipping through some note cards on his desk. "So, let's talk about your new project. You're doing another album, right? I read somewhere that you're trying to appeal to younger audiences. How's that going?" Cher nodded slowly. "Yeah, I'm working on new music. And I've always had fans of all ages, so I wouldn't say I'm trying to appeal to anyone specifically. I just make music I believe in." Right, Gutfeld said, not really listening. "But you've got to admit, the music industry has changed a lot since your heyday. I mean, these days it's all about TikTok and streaming and all that stuff. Must be tough to keep up when you're from the era of vinyl records." The audience went quiet. Cher's jaw tightened. "I actually still sell plenty of records, Greg. And I've been on every platform you can think of. Just because I've been around for a while doesn't mean I'm out of touch." Gutfeld put his hands up in mock surrender. "Hey, I'm not saying you're out of touch. I'm just saying the world has moved on, you know? Things are different now. But hey, good for you for hanging in there. Hanging in there." Those words landed like a slap. Cher's eyes narrowed. "Hanging in there? Are you serious right now?" "What?" Gutfeld said with a shrug, playing innocent. "It's a compliment. You're still doing your thing. That's impressive at your age." "At your age?" He said it again. The audience shifted in their seats. This wasn't playful anymore. This was mean. And Cher wasn't the type to just sit there and take it. "You know what, Greg?" Cher said, her voice calm but cold. "I came on this show because I thought we could have a fun conversation. But if you're just going to sit here and take shots at me for being older, then maybe I shouldn't have bothered." Gutfeld laughed, but it was forced. "Oh, come on, don't be so sensitive. I'm just having a little fun. This is comedy. You can take a joke, can't you? There's a difference between a joke and just being rude." Cher shot back. "And right now, you're just being rude." The tension in the studio was thick. You could feel everyone holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Gutfeld's smile faltered for just a second, but then he doubled down. All right, he said, leaning forward. "Let's change the subject then. Let's talk about politics. I know you've been pretty vocal about your opinions over the years. You've said some pretty wild stuff on Twitter." Cher sighed. "Here we go." "No, seriously," Gutfeld continued. You've called people names. You've gotten into fights online. You've said some pretty harsh things about politicians you don't like. Don't you think that's a bit hypocritical? I mean, you're sitting here upset because I made a joke about your age, but you've said way worse things about other people. Cher stared at him. Are you really comparing me defending my career to me speaking out about issues I care about? Those are two completely different things. Are they, though? Gutfeld pressed. Because it seems like you can dish it out, but you can't take it. You want to call people names and say whatever you want. But the second someone makes a joke about you, suddenly it's off limits. The audience was silent now. This had gone from uncomfortable to hostile. Cher's face was flushed. You don't know what you're talking about. When I speak out, it's because I believe in something. It's because I care about making the world better. What you're doing right now is just trying to get a rise out of me for ratings. Gutfeld laughed again, louder this time. Ratings? Oh, that's rich coming from you. You've been chasing relevance for years. Every time you post something crazy online, it's because you want attention. And now you're on my show, which means you need me more than I need you. The room went cold. That was the line. That was the moment everything changed. Cher's eyes went wide, then narrowed into slits. Her hands gripped the armrests of the couch. Excuse me, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Gutfeld didn't back down. If anything, he leaned in harder. I'm just being honest. You're here because your people called my people. You wanted the exposure. You wanted to reach my audience. So don't sit there and act like you're doing me a favor. Cher stood up. Not quickly, but deliberately. She smoothed down her jacket and looked Gutfeld dead in the eye. You are unbelievable. I've been interviewed by some of the biggest names in this business, and not one of them has ever been this disrespectful. Oh, please, Gutfeld said, waving his hand dismissively. You're just mad because I'm not kissing your ass like everyone else does. You're used to people treating you like royalty, but this is my show, and I don't do that celebrity worship thing. There's a difference between not kissing ass and being a complete jerk. Cher fired back. And right now, you're being a complete jerk. The audience gasped. Some people started clapping, but they were quickly shushed by others who wanted to hear what would happen next. Gutfeld's face went red. He clearly wasn't expecting Cher to fight back this hard. A jerk? He repeated. I'm a jerk for asking you tough questions? For not treating you like you're special? You're not asking tough questions, Cher said, her voice rising. You're just being mean. There's nothing clever about what you're doing. You're just being a bully. Gutfeld stood up now too, facing her across the desk. A bully? Are you kidding me? You can't handle a little back and forth? This is what I do. This is my show. If you can't handle it, then maybe you should leave. Cher's eyebrows shot up. Oh, you want me to leave? Is that what you want? I'm just saying, Gutfeld said, crossing his arms. If you're going to come on here and cry every time I make a joke, then, yeah, maybe this isn't the right fit. The studio was dead silent. Everyone was watching Cher, waiting to see what she would do. Her chest was rising and falling quickly. She was furious. You could see her hands shaking slightly at her sides. You know what? She said slowly. I've been in this business for over 50 years. I've dealt with sexism, ageism, every kind of discrimination you can imagine. I've been told I'm too old, too outspoken, too much, and I've survived all of it. I've thrived despite all of it. So if you think you're going to break me with your little insults, you've got another thing coming. Gutfeld smirked. I'm not trying to break you. I'm just trying to have a conversation. No, you're not, Cher snapped. You're trying to humiliate me. You invited me on your show just so you could tear me down in front of your audience. And honestly, that says way more about you than it does about me. Oh, here we go, Gutfeld said, rolling his eyes. The victim card. Classic. I'm not playing victim, Cher said, her voice shaking with anger. I'm calling you out for being a coward. You hide behind comedy and pretend you're just joking, but really you're just scared. You're scared of strong women who speak their minds. You're scared of anyone who doesn't bow down to you. Gutfeld's smirk disappeared. You don't know anything about me. I know enough, Cher said. I know that you think being mean makes you edgy. I know that you think insulting your guests makes you cool. But really, it just makes you pathetic. The audience erupted. Some people were cheering, others were booing. It was chaos. Gutfeld's face was bright red now. He pointed at Cher, his finger shaking. "You need to watch how you talk to me," he said, his voice tight. "This is my show. You don't come in here and disrespect me like that." Cher laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Disrespect you? That's hilarious. You've been disrespecting me from the second I sat down. But now that I'm standing up for myself, suddenly I'm the bad guy? You are being completely unprofessional," Gutfeld said. "Unprofessional?" Cher repeated, incredulous. "You spent the last 10 minutes insulting me, and now you want to talk about professionalism? Are you out of your mind?" Gutfeld slammed his hand on the desk. "I was doing my job. This is what I do. I push buttons. I ask hard questions. I don't just sit here and lob softballs like every other host." "There's a difference between asking hard questions and being an asshole," Cher said. The word hung in the air. The audience went completely silent. Even the camera operators seemed frozen. Cher didn't care. She was done playing nice. "Did you just call me an asshole on my own show?" Gutfeld asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "If the shoe fits," Cher said with a shrug. Gutfeld's jaw clenched. For a moment, it looked like he might actually lose it completely. His hands were balled into fists at his sides. "You know what, Cher? I think we're done here." "Oh, we're definitely done," Cher agreed. "In fact, I was done about 5 minutes ago. I just wanted to make sure everyone watching knows exactly what kind of person you are." "And what kind of person is that?" Gutfeld challenged. Cher stepped closer to the desk, looking him right in the eye. "The kind who tears people down to make himself feel big. The kind who thinks being cruel is the same as being funny. The kind who will look back on this moment one day and realize he wasted his platform on cheap shots and childish insults." The audience was losing it now. People were standing up, some cheering for Cher, others yelling at her to sit down. The producers were probably having heart attacks in the control room. This was live television at its most raw and unpredictable. Gutfeld's face was a mask of barely controlled rage. "Get out," he said quietly. "What was that?" Cher asked, cupping her ear dramatically. "I couldn't hear you over the sound of your ego crashing." "I said get out," Gutfeld shouted. His voice cracked a little. "Get off my show." Cher smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the smile of someone who had just won. "Gladly. I've got better things to do than waste my time with someone like you." She turned to walk away, but then stopped and looked back over her shoulder. "You know, Greg, you could have had a great interview tonight. I came here ready to talk, ready to share stories, ready to connect with your audience. But you were so desperate to prove something that you blew it. And the sad part is, you don't even realize what you lost." Gutfeld didn't respond. He just stood there, fuming, his face red and his hands trembling. Cher shook her head and walked toward the exit. The audience was on their feet now, some clapping, some booing, everyone talking at once. It was absolute mayhem. As Cher reached the edge of the stage, she turned one last time. "Oh, and one more thing," she called out. "I've been on thousands of shows in my career. And this will go down as the worst one. Congratulations." With that, she disappeared behind the curtain. The camera stayed on Gutfeld, who was still standing at his desk, looking like he'd just been hit by a truck. His mouth opened and closed a few times, but no words came out. The audience was still going wild, the noise deafening. One of the producers rushed onto the stage, probably trying to figure out how to salvage the rest of the show. But there was no salvaging this. The damage was done. Gutfeld had pushed too hard, been too mean, and Cher had called him out in front of everyone. There was no coming back from that. Backstage, you could hear the commotion as Cher made her exit. Staff members were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do. Security was probably on high alert, making sure things didn't escalate further. But Cher was already gone, her heels clicking against the floor as she walked out of the building without looking back. Back on the set, Gutfeld finally composed himself enough to speak. "Well," he said, his voice hoarse, "that was something." He tried to laugh it off, but it came out wrong, forced, fake. The audience wasn't buying it. "We're going to take a quick break," he announced, even though his hands were shaking as he gestured to the camera. "Don't go anywhere." But as the cameras cut away and the studio lights dimmed slightly, everyone knew the truth. The show was over. Not just this episode, but maybe Gutfeld's credibility too. Because when you invite a legend onto your show and treat them like garbage, people remember. They talk. They share clips. They cancel subscriptions. And Cher? She walked out of that studio with her head held high, knowing she had stood up for herself when it mattered most. She didn't need Gutfeld's show. She didn't need his audience. She had her own fans, her own legacy, her own voice, and nothing he said could take that away from her. The confrontation lasted less than 15 minutes from start to finish, but it would be talked about for weeks, maybe months. People would dissect every word, every gesture, every facial expression. They'd debate who was right and who was wrong. But deep down, most people would know the truth. Gutfeld had crossed a line. He'd been given a chance to interview one of the most iconic performers of all time, and instead of treating her with respect, he'd treated her like a punching bag. And when she fought back, he'd kicked her off his show like a petulant child who didn't get his way. As Cher pushed through the back doors of the studio and into the cool night air, she took a deep breath. She was still angry, her heart still racing, but she was also relieved. Relieved that she hadn't just sat there and taken it. Relieved that she'd spoken her truth. Relieved that she'd walked away with her dignity intact. Behind her, inside the studio, chaos continued. Producers were arguing. Audience members were still buzzing with shock and excitement. And Gutfeld was probably in his dressing room trying to figure out how to spin this. But none of that mattered to Cher anymore. She had said what needed to be said. She had drawn her line in the sand, and she had walked away on her own terms. In the end, that was all that mattered. The interview was over. The confrontation had reached its explosive conclusion, and Cher had made her exit. Not because she was weak, but because she was strong enough to know when to walk away. The studio doors closed behind her with a heavy thud, sealing off the noise and chaos inside. And just like that, one of the most dramatic moments in late-night television history came to an end, with a legend walking away from a host who had proven himself unworthy of her time.